أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا محمد وأهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. My dear elders, brothers, sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. It's the 27th night of the holy month of Ramadan, the last few days of this holy month. Not only that, but it's also a Thursday night. So in a game of Scrabble, you have a double word score for those of you who play Scrabble. So 27th night is one of the probable nights of Laylatul Qadr. And God also gives us a weekly Laylatul Qadr, which is the night of Thursday. So may Allah give us the tawfiq on this night to be able to make use of this night. And may He make us one of those on whom His mercy descends. وَاجْعَلْنِي مَرْحُومًا وَلَا تَجْعَلْنِي مَحْرُومًا or mahrumin. Before we go ahead with the topic of discussion, there was a small bit of news this week. Most of you might have heard it. If not, then I will just share it with you, and you might have ignored it because it was in the news group. So it was the passing away of the wife of Ayatollah Jawad Amudi. He is one of the top scholars in Qom, and we owe him so much. We have quoted him several times. When Sheikh Sakalashwar was here, he quoted him so many times. He happens to be the teacher of Sheikh Sakalashwar. So his wife, Hajiya Sakina Ruhi, passed away in the nights of Qadr, or 21st night or 23rd night. So our condolences go to Ayatollah Jawad Amuli. May Allah give him sabr jameel to be able to bear this loss, inshallah, and may He reward him for his sabr. And may He bless the soul of his wife, inshallah, late wife. But there's a lesson in this for us. Ayatollah Jawad Amuli, I heard it from one of the top students in Qom. And he said he was once asked by one of his students that what is the secret of your spiritual level or your spiritual status? What is the secret? How did you reach the stage that you've reached? So scholars are usually very humble and they always deny it. It's not what you think. But then he says, probably if I am there, then he recites this verse of Surah Furqan, chapter 25, verse number 74. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم ربنا هب لنا من أزواجنا وذرياتنا قرة أعين وجعلنا للمتقين إماما. He says, if you call me Imam al-Muttaqin, I've reached this stage, it's because of هب لنا من أزواجنا وذرياتنا. It was because of his relationship with his spouse and his children. Only then can you become an Imam al-Muttaqin. So his wife has passed away, and she was the secret, according to him, of his status. So everything starts at home. Our dealing with our spouses, with our children at home, that's where the spiritual journey begins, up to the level whereby we reach the stage of Imam al-Muttaqin. So this was an advice that he shared with his students. So something that we should keep in mind for this week. So the topic of discussion was this verse of Surah Ankabut, chapter 29, verse number 41. Why Surah Ankabut? Naturally, Surah Ankabut was a surah that we recited a few days back. I highly recommended to recite this surah on the nights of Qadr, along with Surah Rum and Surah Dukhan. And it's not only a ritual. Definitely when it's been recommended, that means there are a lot of lessons in it for us. Because the new year, the spiritual new year, according to the scholars, starts in Laylatul Qadr. So according to the scholars, and I heard Sheikh Sakaleshwar also saying at this time, that it's not that you ascend on the night of Qadr. No, it's your efforts for the whole year that are rewarded on the night of Qadr. So if you've made an effort the whole year, on the night of Qadr you ascend. So that's where they put in their efforts. So Laylatul Qadr is the beginning of the new spiritual year, and it lays out, you have to lay out your plan as to what you're going to do for the spiritual year. You implement it, and come the next Laylatul Qadr, you will ascend. So it's full of lessons. But this particular verse, verse number 41, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم مثل الذين اتخذوا من دون الله أولياء كمثل العنكبوت اتخذت بيتا وإن أوهن البيوت لبيت العنكبوت لو كانوا يعلمون. The example of those who take allies other than Allah is like that of a spider who takes a home. And indeed, the weakest of homes is the home of the spider, if they only knew. So there's a lot that can be discussed on this verse. Luckily, I found this article on Academia. Academia is a website whereby researchers write research papers and they present it and they put it on this website. So plenty of papers on various subjects can be found on this website. I was introduced to this website by Sheikh Shamili, Abbas Shamili, who was here. He constantly keeps on posting his research papers on this website, and very interesting. So this was one paper that I found on this website. It's by S. Abdul Rahman, and coincidentally he's written about the parable of the spider in the Holy Quran. So in detail he's tried to open up this verse, because this is the only place where Ankabut has been mentioned, and this is what gives the name to the surah. So before we go into the details of the verse, I'm going to follow his methodology. So before we go into the message of the verse, you know the way the Quran is. If you remember the way Sheikh Sakaleshwar described it, there's Lahul Mahfuz, the highest level where Quran is stored with Allah, and how it descends on Laylatul Qadr from the immaterial realm, from the spiritual realm, immaterial realm, to the semi-immaterial, to the physical realm, the descension. So the way the message is stored at those high levels, and then it descends to what we see. So the word spider, or the spider, basically, as much as we see it in the physical Quran that is in front of us, but it holds a very high status, because it is definitely mentioned in those stages also, in the spiritual realms. So we need to look at this insect. So there's a formula which I had heard from Sheikh Murtada Al-Dina. He says, when we want to swear, or when we want to promise, or we want to give our oaths a weight, we take the name of Allah. Because the way we look at Allah, the greatness of Allah. But when Allah talks about somebody, so when God swears by something, for example, wal fajr, walayalin ashr, when God swears by something, wattini was zaytun, that thing becomes important now, because God is swearing by that. So the greatness, Allah with all His greatness is swearing by that, so automatically that thing becomes important. So when a spider, Ankabut, has been mentioned in the Holy Quran, definitely there is something in this insect that needs to be studied, along with the other insects that have been mentioned, Naml, Nahl, the bee, the ant. There's something special in these creatures that have to be studied. So there are almost 30,000 species of spiders that have been identified by scientists. And they range in size from less than a millimeter to up to 90 millimeters. So 9 centimeters wide spiders have been identified. So 30,000 species varying in size. The beauty about these creatures is they can be found anywhere from sea level to up to 5,000 meters above sea level. 5,000 meters is high, Kilimanjaro almost, the peak. So it's an insect that is found in all habitats, and that's why God has used this insect as a parable to explain something that He wants to tell us. Because everybody would know what a spider is. So the beauty about this spider is the speciality about a spider is, of course, the web. It is this protein that is produced from its abdomen. So there are 3 pairs of projections. They are called spinners, and you can see them right behind me. This is the abdomen of a spider, and they have those projections with holes, and this is what releases a protein. And that protein, the moment it comes into contact with air, it solidifies. And that's how the web is formed. So I want you to watch this video, and then we'll continue. Let's hope it plays well.
Like a real-life spider woman, she sprays strands of silk in one long, continuous flow. The threads fan out like a sail and drift on air currents blowing across the water. Every few seconds, she crimps the strands together to stop them spreading too widely. The breeze will do the rest, blowing the threads into a single line and a 25-meter bridge. Now she must reinforce her bridge because her web will hang from it. But there's something bouncing the line at the other end. Another darling spider is trying to take advantage of her hard work. She must deal with the intruder head on. The cut line is an inconvenience, but no more than that. With hooks on the tips of each leg, she gathers in the thread. It won't go to waste, as she'll eat it later. When it's all reeled in, she sprays again. Out streams another 25-meter bridging line. How a spider, no bigger than a thumbnail, can produce so much silk so quickly has baffled scientists. And it's no ordinary silk. It's the toughest natural fibre on the planet, tougher than steel. And it needs to be tough to span the wide river. With the bridge taut and the ground anchor in place, it's time to construct her trap. These spiders can build the world's largest orb webs, up to 2 meters wide. A few hours from the first spray of bridging line, the job is done.
Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Sallu ala Muhammad. So just to summarize this video, it is a Darwin spider, and you can see from those spinners, it releases silk, that protein which solidifies, and it just throws it into the air and lets the air take it 25 meters across the river up to the tree on the other side. So it forms a bridge, and then it builds its web. So in this research paper, the word used is Ankabut. He goes into the root word of Ankabut and how different Arabic dialects have this word and where did it come from. We don't want to go into those details. But he says most likely it's feminine singular. And there's a significance. So we have to keep in mind that Quran was revealed 1400 years back. At that time, there were no facilities to verify whether this is a male spider or a female spider. But actually, it's always the female spider that builds the web. They are the ones who have the capacity to build the web. So Quran, right from that time, verified this. So it talks about the female spider which builds its house. So the male comes in at the time of mating, but usually it's a solitary animal or an insect. So unlike the bees and the ants who live in colonies, spiders live on their own. They are solitary, and that's why the feminine singular in Quran. But it's weak. So this verse talks about the fragility or how weak this spider web is. But there's a very subtle point here which S. Abdul Rahman picks up. He says, when the verse talks about the Baytul Ankabut, it talks about the Bayt, the house of the Ankabut, which is weak, not the silk. The components of the web are very strong, and as you heard in the video, it is called biosteel. It's the strongest biological material. It's harder than steel. So if you were to put steel into that thickness of a spider web, so it is thinner than a human hair, a spider web. If you were to put steel into that thickness, it would be no match to a spider web. Spider web is stronger than steel, and it can be stretched 5 times its length before it breaks. So you can pull a spider web, a single string, 5 times its length before it really snaps. So it's one of the strongest biomaterials ever known. But the web, the bait is weak and not the silk. So it's a very subtle point. Not only that, but there's another point he brings up. So physical weakness, yes, the web itself is not very strong. So wind, it exposes the spider. We'll come to that later on. But he talks about spiritual weakness also. Why spiritual weakness? He says it's a house, the Bayt al-Ankabut is a house which does not have any love or kindness in it. The pillars of any home is love and kindness. A spider lives on its own. Whenever it needs to mate, it brings in the male. After mating, it kills the male. So the male is killed, or it leaves the nest. Sometimes some species, they lay the eggs and then the female dies. So the spider young ones, when they hatch, there is no parent around. They start fighting with each other for survival. They kill each other and a few remain, and the one that remains, the strongest, builds a web. So it's a house that is filled with violence, and there is no love or kindness in this Baytul Ankabut. So he says it's a house devoid of spirituality also. So not only is it physically weak, spiritually also it's weak. As we mentioned the verse, وَجَعَلْنَا لِلْمُتَّقِينَ إِمَامًا رَبَّنَا هَبْ لَنَا مِنْ أَزْوَاجِنَا وَذُرِّيَّاتِنَا. Spirituality starts at home. A house that is devoid of spirituality is weak. So that's another lesson that we get to learn from this. There's another research platform where I got this. It says 6 surprising facts about the spider. Number 1, when we look at a spider web, we feel that it's been randomly woven. But it says no, they have a specific design. So when the spider is building its web, it is doing it according to a plan. And in fact, there are some spiders who even decorate their spider web. So they're not doing it randomly, but they're working to a plan. Number 1. Number 2, we feel that when a spider builds a web, it does it in a place whereby it can trap insects. So insects could be flying there, and what happens is it's like a net, so they come and get stuck. They say no, this is not true. They say spider webs don't intercept prey, but they attract them. So the web is built in such a way, not with the intention of trapping, but attracting the prey. Of course, when the prey is attracted, it gets trapped. Number 2. Number 3, it's shiny for a reason. If you saw in this video, when the sun rays fall on it, it reflects UV light. And as you know, UV light also attracts insects. So the material is such that it has an ability to reflect light, so it attracts insects. Number 3. Number 4, spiders are very sneaky. They believe a lot in camouflage. So they are also hunted upon by other predators. So sometimes they leave exoskeletons on the web just to camouflage, and they hide somewhere else. Number 4. Number 5, if you see the size of the web, this one was 25 meters long. So they always think big. Spiders always think big. Yes, small flies get trapped in their web, but those small flies are not enough for the spider. What it needs is a big catch, and that's why they build the web really big, hoping that one big insect will come and get trapped, not the small flies. So it's not designed for the small flies, but it's designed for the bigger ones. And lastly, researchers tell us that they modify their web on a daily basis. So they are always improvising on a daily basis. So once a web has been done, on a daily basis they go over the web, they repair it, they build some more, and it's always expanding, it's always modified. So these are 6 points which I want you to keep in mind. We'll come to the discussion point later on. So having studied the spider now, about this beauty of Allah, this creation of Allah, and the specialities of the spider. Now let's come to the verse. So you go through all the commentaries, and the message is unanimous. So Agha and Mir Ahmad Ali's Quran, there is another commentary, the enlightening commentary of the Holy Quran, which you can get on alislam.org. I couldn't get hold of Al-Mizan because Ankabut has not been translated yet. So the project is ongoing, but Surah Ankabut, it's there in Farsi or Arabic, but the English version is not out. So I couldn't see what Allama Tabatabai has said about this verse. But Abdul Rahman has also quoted some Sunni Mufassirin, and he's also given a commentary. But the message is very clear. He says any house that is built on earth by any creature, it's with the sole purpose of protecting itself. So it will usually be 3-dimensional. It will have walls, it will have a ceiling to protect it from the rain, from the sun, from the wind. This is one bayt This is one house which is totally exposed. It has built a house for itself, but it's totally exposed. Exposed to the wind, exposed to the rain, exposed to the sun. And the thing is, it thinks of itself as the strongest home. When it builds that home, the spider thinks that this is the strongest home I built, the best home. Not realizing that it's the weakest of homes, exposed totally to the environment. وَإِنَّ أَوْهَنَ الْبُيُوتِ لَبَيْتُ الْعَنْكَبُوتِ. So this is a parable, a mithal that God gives. But before this verse, as we recited Surah Ankabut, it talks about Fir'aun, Haman, Qarun, the Qawm of Lut, Ahl Madian, Ad, Thamud. All these people are mentioned before this verse. And all of them had taken something as a source of comfort for themselves other than Allah. So Qarun, his wealth. Fir'aun, power. Ahl Madian, the people of Shu'aib, their business mastery, cheating in business, taking that as a protection, as their protection. Qawm Lut, their desires. Other than Allah, they took that as a protection. Ad and Thamud, technology. So the ayah says, anything that you take other than Allah is like Baytul Ankabut. And Aghapuya mentions very rightly here. He says that a spider web, however it may have been designed, but a finger of a human, if you just pass a finger, it's enough to destroy it. He says, similarly, we humans build an empire other than Allah, something that does not have taqwa in it. We build a house thinking that it's very strong. It could be a business empire, it could be power, it could be our own intelligence, technology. But we don't realize that the finger of Allah is enough to come and destroy it, just the way a spider web is destroyed. So we always have to keep this in mind. And this example can be extended to the human body also. So the human body is the home for the soul. And we have a lot of confidence on this body. Oh, you could be going to the gym, and so much of faith and confidence, and we take this body for granted. And this COVID that came in was a big lesson for us. How were we scrambling, hiding in our homes or running, looking for refuge for something that we couldn't even see, against something that we couldn't even see, the virus. That's how volatile we are. People falling down, heart problems, strokes, accidents. We are so fragile. It's like Baytul Ankabut. So we have to be thankful and use this body for the right thing. Not only power, money, but our ibadah. Our ibadah also, sometimes we have so much confidence on our acts of worship that, we stayed up in the nights of Qadr and we recited this many Qur'ans and we've done this much of ibadah and we have fasted the whole month and we've given this much of charity. We have so much faith in our ibadah, and we build a home, we build a house for ourselves in Jannah. But the example is of Iblis. Scholars tell us there is nobody who can worship like Iblis. None of us will be able to worship like Iblis. Yet one act of disobedience, Baytul Ankabut, gone. Whatever he had built over a period of 6,000 years, gone. So it's not only physical things, but our ibadah also. So there's a small formula that I heard from Sheikh Shumali here. He says, your hardships are worthier than your acts of worship. Your hardships are worthier than your acts of worship. Sometimes when we worship Allah, we have so much faith on it that, we've done so much. But for that worship to be accepted and for it to be protected, it takes so much. While an act of hardship, be it a death, be it sickness, all you have to do is just have patience. You have patience, that ibadah is accepted. That hardship is accepted from Allah and God rewards you for it. So our acts of, our hardships are worthier than our acts of worship. And of course, then we can come to the hidden shirk that Sheikh Sakaleshwar talked about, which is very scary. The subtle, yes, we may do everything, but then you always have that hidden shirk lurking. What was our true intention? What were we doing it for? That is also another Baytul, a very fragile home that we are building for ourselves that we may think of, and it can get destroyed with a simple act. So this is as far as this verse is concerned. So I think we've got enough lessons as to how fragile we are, how fragile our ibadah or the blessings that Allah gives us. So we have to have taqwa, God mindfulness, always keep God ahead, incorporate Allah in everything that we do, keep Him ahead to stabilize this home. Anything other than Allah, be it the institution of marriage, be it our homes, be it our business, be it our education, is a Baytul Ankabut. Very, very fragile. If you give it to Allah, it will be as strong. It's the hardest thing you can think of. But what really motivated me to take up this example is this next video. So I want you to watch this video carefully. This is what really motivated me to take up this topic.
هذا النصر نقدمه لشعبنا المظلوم في فلسطين المحتلة ولشعوب أمتنا العربية والإسلامية. ومن هنا من بنت جبيل المحررة أخاطب شعب فلسطين المظلوم المعذب المضطهد. يا شعبنا في فلسطين، مصيرك بيدك، مصيرك بيدك. أرضك تستطيع أن تستعيدها بإرادتك، بخيار عز الدين القسام، بدماء فتح الشقاقي ويحيى عياش. يمكنك أن تستعيد أرضك دون أن يمن عليك هذا الصهيوني بزاروب هنا أو قرية هناك. يمكنكم أن تعيدوا أهلكم إلى ديارهم بفخر واعتزاز دون توسل لأحد. أنتم تستطيعون أن تستعيدوا أرضكم وحقوقكم المشروعة حتى ولو تخلى عنكم كل العالم. دعوا هذه الأدلة والحجج جانبا. إن طريق فلسطين يا شعب فلسطين، إن طريقكم إلى الحرية هو طريق المقاومة والانتفاضة، المقاومة الجادة والانتفاضة الحقيقية. ليس الانتفاضة في إطار أوسلو، وليس الانتفاضة في خدمة المفاوض المتنازل في ستوكهولم. الانتفاضة والمقاومة الذي لا ترضى إلا بالحق كاملا، كما في لبنان. في لبنان كل لبنان يرفض أن يبقى جزء بسيط من أرضه تحت الاحتلال. هذا النموذج اللبناني الراقي نقدمه لشعبنا في فلسطين. نعم، أنتم الفلسطينيون المظلومون، أنتم الفلسطينيون العزل، أنتم الفلسطينيون المحاصرون. يمكنكم أن تفرضوا على الغزاة الصهاينة أن يعودوا من حيث أتوا. فليذهب الفلاشة إلى أثيوبيا. هلا أرض واسعة بأثيوبيا في محلات منيح. فليعد اليهود الروس إلى روسيا. على كل الخيار عندكم والنموذج ماثل أمام أعينكم. المقاومة الصادقة والجادة يمكنها أن تصنع لكم فجر الحرية يا إخواننا وأحباءنا وأعزائنا في فلسطين. أقول لكم يا شعبنا في فلسطين، إن إسرائيل هذه التي تملك أسلحة نووية وأقوى سلاح جو في المنطقة، والله هي أوهن من بيت العنكبوت، والله هي أوهن من بيت العنكبوت. لكن إذا كنتم تريدون الاعتماد على الاتحاد السوفيتي كما كان في السابق لن تصلوا إلى نتيجة. إذا كنتم تنتظرون المجتمع الدولي لن تصلوا إلى نتيجة. إذا كنتم تراهنون على المعادلات لن تصلوا إلى نتيجة. لكن يا شعب فلسطين، إن تنصروا الله ينصركم ويثبت أقدامكم يا شعب فلسطين، وإن ينصركم الله فلا غالب لكم. لشعوبنا العربية والإسلامية، أيتها الأمة العربية، يا عالمنا العربي والإسلامي، الخزي والهزيمة والذل والعار من الماضي. هذا الانتصار يؤسس لحقبة تاريخية جديدة ويقفل الباب على حقبة تاريخية ماضية. دعوا اليأس جانبا وتسلحوا بالأمل. دعوا الوهن جانبا واشحذوا الهمم والعزائم. إنني اليوم باسم كل الشهداء في لبنان، باسم كل المظلومين في لبنان، أطالب الحكومات العربية بالحد الأدنى أن توقف التطبيع مع إسرائيل، أن تقطع علاقاتها بإسرائيل، أن تفرض موقفها وقرارها على إسرائيل. وأطالب الشعوب العربية أن تقف إلى جانب فلسطين وشعب فلسطين وترفض أي شكل من أشكال التطبيع مع هذا العدو. إسرائيل الكبرى هزمتها المقاومة، وإسرائيل العظمى تهزمها المقاومة، وأحد أشكالها المهمة مقاومة التطبيع.
صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. If you notice, he uses the same Quranic verse. He refers to Israel as Baytul Ankabut. It may have the best nuclear power, may have the best air force, but this man is using the Quranic example. And if you notice, he uses Wallah. It's not a light word. He's a scholar. Wallah, Wallah, he says. And this comes from the yaqeen that he has. So it's not ilmul yaqeen, it's not aynul yaqeen, it's haqqul yaqeen. He has gone through the path of resistance himself. He's made the Israelis feel the defeat. He's defeated them. And he says, this is the model that I'm placing before you now. Wallah comes from haqqul yaqeen. He is sure, based on this verse, that if you have faith in Allah, then nothing will stand on your way. However strong they may look, it's a Baytul Ankabut. It can be brought down. And these Arab powers were trying to hold on to Israel. It's a Baytul Ankabut on its own, and then these Arabs were trying to hold on to the Baytul Ankabut, or I should say maybe they are trapped in this spider web. Is it that they are holding on to the spider web, or they are the insects who have been trapped in this spider web? To me it looks like they have been trapped. Over the years it was all modified, and now they've reached a stage whereby they can't go back. It's a total trap. So we need to be aware of what is happening around the world and relate it to the Quranic messages that we have, and always look up to these people who have stood up, support them in whatever way we can. The least we can do is tomorrow there's a procession for them, our brothers in Palestine, the resistance. We need to give them support. There's going to be a blood donation drive. We participate in that. Whatever little way, our du'as should always be for them, because the path is very clear now. There's a Quranic path which describes this empire as a house that is devoid of love, like a spider web. It's just full of crime. And we have a choice. We want to stand with them, we want to stand against them. We have to make a choice today and act according to it, inshallah. May Allah give us the tawfiq to be able to understand what is happening in the world and take the right stance in our lives. Allahumma arina al-haqqa haqqa warzuqna ittiba'ah wa arina al-batila batila warzuqna ijtinabah wa la taj'al alayhi mutashabihan fatba'a hawa bighayri hudan minka ya arhamar rahimin. Inna Allaha malaikatahu yusalluna 'alan nabi ya ayyuhalladhina amanu sallu 'alayhi wa sallimu taslima. Allahumma salli 'ala We'll open up the discussion now. Anybody wants to contribute something? I don't think I'm qualified to answer questions, but whatever little. Yes, Ali.
I was hoping, or I think we can have the sixth qualities you mentioned of the spiders.
Yes.
I'm sure if we did enough research into how Israel is moving, I'm sure we can find each one. That's exactly how their model is. You know, those six, one of the researchers.
So that was my intention, but in respect of time, I stopped.
I really thought you would actually
Yes.
that in kind of side by side each one.
Yes.
I'm pretty sure we'll know exactly that model is what Israel is today.
Definitely. Spiders have a design.
Yes.
They're not doing things randomly. So the planning that goes behind whatever they're doing, number one. Number two, spider webs are not designed to intercept, but they attract. It's not only a trap, but it's attracting. If you see the way the model has been presented, top 5 tech companies in the world, be it Apple, Microsoft, they all have their centers in Tel Aviv. And there's a video of Netanyahu, Benjamin Netanyahu, talking about the technological advances of Israel and how it has attracted the attention of world powers, the technological advances. Just to know the amount of research that they are doing. I had talked about this in one of my lectures. So research and development, Tanzania has, I think, maybe 20 or 30 researchers per 1 million people. For every 1 million people in Tanzania, there are only 20 or 30 researchers. I think Kenya has 40, according to statistics. You know how much does Israel have? 8,000 researchers per 1 million. 8,000 researchers for every 1 million people. That's the amount of research and development they're doing. Cut edge. So Netanyahu talks about them even monitoring plants as to how much a plant is growing. They have capacity to monitor, and drone technology and medical. Very attractive, and this is what they use as a bait. So the way they normalized their ties with Turkey recently, and the statement was this: okay, we're going to benefit from the scientific, the technological advances of the Israelis. Number 3, they are shiny for a reason. They reflect UV light. Not the way they are attraction again. They are sneaky. Spiders are very sneaky, camouflage. If it wasn't for the Palestinians' resistance, we wouldn't have known what Israel is today. I always give an example of a pencil. You know, you have a pencil and you have the lead which is buried inside the wooden part, and the only part that writes is the tip. Only when you see the tip do you realize what the pencil is filled with. If the Palestinians had given in, and if they would have normalized, we wouldn't have known what Israel is. This small resistance with stones has exposed Israel, and we actually know the reality. So they talk about all technological advances, but their true nature of violence is seen in Palestine. They think big. They don't think small. Number 5. They don't go for small. It's big. The way they've taken over the US, and now there's a dilemma. With the US going down, whom are they going to hold on to? Is it China? What if they hold on to China? Where is the world going to go? And lastly, they're always building and modifying. If you see the expansions that are going on in the occupied territory on a daily basis, keep expanding this territory, build. So yeah, This was there, but just in respect of time, this is a summary. Of course, there are some people who could have other similes in their mind, but yeah. So Abdul Rahman, when he talks about, he says the bait is a problem, but the strands of silk are not a problem. So power, money, education, technology, these are just the strings. Don't use it to make a home against Allah, but use it to get to Allah. It's a very strong, it's as strong as silk, but it can be used to get to Allah rather than building a house against Allah, to make it a Baytul Ankabut. Yes, thank you, salam.
I just think it's worth mentioning that with one of the examples that he gave about us, Allah's hand is stronger than 1,000 the spider's web. I think we human beings have a part to play with that, especially when it comes to Allah's hand.
Yes.
And not to underestimate, like Sayyid said, don't accept the normalization of the existence of Israel as many factors. Even though we are not in the region, it's important not to underestimate the power of certain movements that are there that we can support by boycott and anti-Semitism.
Yes.
Because that helps to destabilize the existence of this web in that region. We can play our part. We are part of Allah's plan. We are agents in Allah's plan. We can't just in mindfulness sit and wait for a divine intervention. We are supposed to be contributing as an ummah to that, in order to destabilize the existence of this cancer. So inshallah we can try to support those things, like I said, right, support them physically, maybe as mothers or parents teach our children this history, this politics of the region.
This is mentioned in this Quranic commentary that we have, Muhammad al-Asi. Yeah, so he mentions that the Bani Israel were people who always depended on mu'jiza, and they were given so much, manna, salwa, the cloud cover, and crossing of the Nile. But he says after coming of the Prophet, when Islam was introduced, Muslims were not given this benefit, but they had to put in effort, and when they reached a threshold, that's when the divine hand came in. So the battles of Badr and Uhud and Khandak. So you put in your effort, and if you see the model of the Iranian Revolution, the number of lives that they gave, and when you reach a threshold, that's when the divine hand comes and picks you up. So that's the Sufis' translation of إِذَا جَاءَ نَصْرُ اللَّهِ وَالْفَتْحِ. They said victory is only when you have put in so much effort that you've reached the end of your line, and then God picks you up. So that's the true victory. So it's not depending on mu'jiza, as sister said, but putting maximum effort, then Allah picks you up. That is one. And secondly, Agha Bahmanpur, I attended his tafsir sessions that in London. He's been doing Tafsir al-Mizan for the longest time. So last time when I was in London, he happened to be doing Ayatul Kursi, the commentary of Ayatul Kursi. And when he came to this verse, وَمَنْ يَكْفُرُ بِالتَّاغُوتِ وَيُؤْمِنْ بِاللَّهِ, he says, see the sequence. First is يَكْفُرُ بِالتَّاغُوتِ, and then يُؤْمِنْ بِاللَّهِ. Even before your faith, make sure you identify the taghut and fight the taghut. It comes before your faith. وَمَنْ يَكْفُرْ بِالتَّاغُوتِ وَيُؤْمِنْ بِاللَّهِ فَقَدْ اسْتَمْسَقَ بِالْعُرْوَةِ الْوُثْقَى لَا انْفِصَامَ لَهَا وَاللَّهُ. So this was from Agha Bahmanpur in his commentary, Quranic commentary. So it's very important. We need to put in more efforts. Anybody else? Ahsant. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.